Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to Sean's Horror Corner. I am Sean, and thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you tuning in today. We're talking about a fun one today. I'm going to be talking about The Strangers from 2008. I've been wanting to review this movie for a while. I know, that newer trilogy that came out gets a lot of hate. We're not talking about that today. We're going to be talking about the original from 2008. I saw this movie. I don't think I saw this movie in theaters. I might have. I really don't remember. It's been quite some time ago, and I'm getting old, so it's hard for me to remember some of those things. But I do remember seeing this movie. Probably, if I didn't see it in theaters, right after it, became available somewhere else, and I absolutely loved it. Over time, I think, just kind of spoiler alert here, over time, I think my appreciation has even grown more for this movie. I know there's still a few out there that don't like it, but I feel like this one's generally pretty well liked by people. I think this movie does a great job of actually being scary. And I've talked before about you see so many things, I've seen so many horror movies that sometimes you can get desensitized to some of these things. But this one works. They do this very, very well, and it's a terrifying concept, in my opinion. So let's jump right in and talk about The Strangers from 2008. Tagline for the film: Lock the door, pretend you're safe. Brief synopsis: after a 4 a.m. knock at the door and haunting voices, Kristen McKay and James Hoyt's remote getaway becomes a psychological night of terror as three masked strangers invade. Now they must go far beyond what they thought themselves capable of if they hope to survive. Film released May 30th of 2008, directed and written by Brian Bertino, runtime of 86 minutes, budget of $9 million, 82.4 million at the box office, so it did incredibly well. Real quick, a couple of members of the cast, a few members of the cast: Liv Tyler, Scott Speedman, Gemma Ward, Kip Weeks, and Laura Margolis. Let's stop there and talk cast and characters for a moment. I think everybody does a really good job with this film. Um, Liv Tyler, I've heard different people have different thoughts on her. I think she's fantastic in this movie. I think she does a great job. I think Scott Speedman does a good job. Yeah, I think the performances are all solid. And as far as the characters, of course, the villains, you're not supposed to like them, but they're very intriguing. And then, these are two main characters here, Kristen and James. Um, I feel like you're able to get behind them. Initially, right off the bat, and we'll get to it when we walk through the plot here short in a few minutes. But there's some tension there, obviously. But I think when you kind of get the backstory that we get a little bit, you can understand both of them, and I think they're both likable people. They just tough situation. We'll put it that way. But I think they're both likable people. Uh, so yeah, I like these characters. I think this cast is good. It's a small cast, but I think it's solid. Everybody, like I said, does a good job. As far as cinematography, score, um, I think this movie looks really good. I think it's shot well. I love the setting. Uh, I think we get, again, like I said, some very creepy shots. They do a great job with this. I think that it's edited well. I just, yeah, a lot of pluses on that side. Score, I think the score is good. There's a couple of the songs in this film, and this might be more for soundtrack, I guess you could say, but that are kind of annoying, but at the same time they fit, and I think it does a great job of adding to the moment, of being uncomfortable and that kind of thing. So um, and then for the story, I really like this story. I think this is so good because, like I said, you can become desensitized to horror sometimes when you watch as much as we do, right? But I think this is a terrifying concept of being out in this remote house and having, we're not talking monsters and supernatural and that kind of thing that are so much fun to watch, but also unbelievable. The kind of thing that we're watching here is very, very believable and unfortunately happens. Uh, and so I think this story is terrifying when you put yourself in these people's situation. And it's probably something that every single one of us at some point or another has been afraid of, something like this. So I just really like this story. A lot of pluses, in my opinion, for all of these things. Let's just discuss a few quick production notes before we get into the plot. The screenplay was inspired by two real life events: the multiple homicide Manson family Tate murders, and a series of break-ins that occurred in Brian Bertiner's neighborhood as a child. Of course, we all know, or most of us know, about Charles Manson and everything he and his quote unquote family did. Terrifying, as I said. Um, this movie won the best horror film at the 35th Saturn Awards, and Liv Tyler won the award for Best Actress at the third Scream Award. So it has gotten some accolades as well. The original title for the screenplay was The Faces. Makes sense as well. Although I like Strangers, I think that title makes sense. But yeah, just a couple of quick production notes there. Let's get into the plot and start to walk through this thing. So we open this film up where we get a lot of words on the screen here that this is inspired by true events, and that the FBI we get some FBI stats about violent crimes and that kind of thing, and then we get to hear this 911 call. Did I say that right? Why did I say it like that? Yes, 911 call about these bodies that are found. These two kids enter this house and they see the aftermath of everything that's taken place. And that's the opening. Not a bad opening. I think it sets the stage. There's nothing here that's just incredible or mind blowing or anything like that, but I think it sets the stage for what we're going to get. Um, sometimes, sometimes when you get a really, really strong opening, and I don't mean that I don't like good openings, because we all know how I feel about things like Scream, stuff like that. But what you don't want from your movie is to have such a strong, powerful opening that then the rest of the movie can never live up to it. And so I think this film does a good job of giving us a good intro, um, kind of setting the stage for what we're about to get, but it's not so mind blowing either that the rest of the movie doesn't have an effect on us. So, yeah, I mean, it's a good opening. Nothing special, but a good opening. We then meet our primary characters, James and Kristen. We see that they're out driving and they arrive at James' isolated summer home. Um, and we can pick up right off the bat that there's some tension between them going on. Um, we see that this place has been set up for a special romantic occasion. But shortly after getting there into the home, James calls his friend Mike and asks Mike to come pick him up in the morning. And then we get a flashback to a wedding reception that the two of them are at. We see James propose, and then we cut back to our current situation. Um, we see the two of them sitting there. James is asking Kristen to keep the ring. Kristen apologizes. She says she just wasn't ready. So we realize that at this wedding reception, James has proposed to Kristen and she has declined. Um, he had big plans for them to come out here to this isolated summer home and have this romantic getaway, and it just wasn't working out the way he had hoped. And again, she's apologizing, says she does love him. She's just not ready for that next step. And then it seems like everything, the two kind of, while there's all this tension there, um, they start to make amends. They talk, they have a hug, and then they start to have sex. And right as they start to have sex, we get a knock at the door. James answers the door, and there's a young woman standing there and asks if Tamara is here. He says no, and of course she leaves. Um, really like this. I think we're getting things good here because we're getting, in my opinion, just enough for our introduction to these characters. We know they're in this, uncomfortable, rough situation, but we can also kind of see both. It doesn't make us turn on either one of them because we can see both of their point of view, both of their thoughts, their feelings on this situation. Um, and then it looks like everything is okay. And we get this knock at the door in the middle of the night of, someone asking for someone who doesn't live there, which would be odd, and a little creepy. So again, I think we're off to a good start with this. I really like this setup. From there, James builds this fire. Kristen mentions that she's out of cigarettes, so he's going to leave to go get her some cigarettes. And while he's gone, things really begin to spiral out of control. Kristen's listening to music. She's having a drink, and then again she hears a knock at the door. And that same young woman is back again asking for Tamara. A few minutes later, there's another knock. Kristen's starting to get a little concerned about this, so she calls James and is telling him, that this girl came back. But while she's walking around the house, we get some very creepy shots of this masked man who's already in the house. We see him just kind of watching her and stalking her. Um, Again, a few minutes later, there's another knock at the door. Kristen now is really freaking out. She arms herself with this knife. Um, a smoke detector has gone off here at some point as well, and so she was able to take the smoke detector down, and just, it's laying there on the floor. But when she goes back, we see the smoke detector is now up in the chair. So someone she now knows has been in the house and very close to her. Um, we then hear the door rattling where someone's trying to get in. We hear a noise out on the patio. Suddenly she realizes her cell phone is missing that she just had a few moments ago, and then she sees a masked man standing on the patio. Uh, Front door opens just a tad, and we see this girl who's wearing this doll face mask now kind of peeking in. While this is all going on as well, the record player that's playing this music is skipping now, and I don't know if anybody's old enough to have had a record player like I was back in the day, but that's so frustrating when it hits that spot and it just keeps skipping over and over. So it's kind of annoying, but it adds to the tension. I just think this is such a great setup here because, again, we've got these really creepy shots. We know she's home alone. She's waiting on James to get back. We've still got this girl outside bothering her, and now this girl's got this, again, creepy doll face mask on. We've seen that there's this masked man in the house with her, and is, not trying to hide it because he's taken her cell phone. He's moved the smoke detector. I mean, there's things happening. We've got this record skipping that's just kind of annoying, but adding to the uncomfortableness and the tension of the situation. So I really like where we're going with this film. And I think the pacing of this film is incredible. Again, it's not a very long movie anyway. I think I mentioned maybe, I don't know, just under an hour and a half, something like that. But this movie seems to fly by. I put it on the other night to watch it to get ready for this. And I had put it on kind of late, but I was like, I need to watch it. I got to get my notes taken and get ready to do this episode. And when I first put it on, I was like, man, it's late though. I hope I'm able to stay engaged. But this movie just flies by, and I enjoy it so much. I had no problem staying awake to watch this film. So yeah, love this setup here. Love the way this has gone. Like I said, generally creepy moments, some really cool stuff happening. Uh, Fully on board here. Uh, the record stops skipping. And so now Kristen's really concerned, but it turns out to be James entering the room and checking on her. He's back from the store now. She tells him what's going on. He looks around the house, doesn't see anybody, but outside they do see this girl in this doll face mask just standing there watching them. James goes outside. I believe he goes to his car to get his phone, but he sees his car has been ransacked, with the windshield's busted, the tires are flat. He gets inside anyway, and he's at least looking forward. We get kind of a creepy shot of a hand coming around and touching his shoulder. And of course, he panics and jumps. But then when he turns around, he doesn't see anybody initially. Getting out of the car and looking around, he does see this masked girl standing. She ends up running away. He goes back inside. And so now he and Kristen are trying to figure out what to do. They choose to, even though the tires are flat and the car's kind of tore up, they're going to try to leave in it anyway. But as they get in the car and start backing out, they get rear-ended by this pickup. And inside this, we see a different girl with like this, I think they call her pinup girl, mask on. They take off back inside the house. James arms himself with a shotgun. But, the masked man that we've seen a few times now, he's starting to pound through the front door with an axe and is breaking in the house. So James fires at him. He and Kristen retreat to the bedroom. So again, I just think this is such a moment where we can all fully understand the terror. I mean, like I said, I feel like at some point all of us have probably been in a situation where we've wondered, we've been home by ourselves and heard a noise, or afraid of someone breaking in. We've heard these true crime stories of the horrible things like the Manson family and things like that have happened. And like I said, I just feel like it's something we can probably all relate to. I think that we're off to such a great start, and the tension this movie does a great job of it. Just keeps building upon its tension and upon the fear and upon the things that are happening, and it's continuing here. The performances are solid. The scares are really good. I really am on board, as you can tell, with what's happening here in this film. After they escape to the bedroom, a few minutes later, we hear a new song begin to play. So we know that someone's still in the house and doing something. But James' friend Mike arrives outside. He realizes that something is wrong. pretty quickly, but then someone also breaks his car window, so he gets out, he's looking around, he sees that things are happening, so he cautiously enters the house. We get a shot as well where he's walking to the house, and we see the masked man behind him with the axe, uh, like slowly coming up on him. So we're thinking maybe he's going to attack Mike. But then Mike walks around the corner to the bedroom. James mistakes him for the intruder and ends up shooting him in the face. Special effects here look really good. It's a good moment as well where first we think maybe this is, like I said, the masked man's going to attack Mike, and then we just very suddenly, James shoots him in the face and Mike is dead. And so you can imagine then when James realizes what he's done, that he's just killed his best friend. Again, I just this scene it plays out perfect. It's a very quick scene, but I just think it's so good and adds very well to what's happening in this film. Uh, James remembers that he has this old transmitter, this radio in the separated garage, so he's going to try to go get it, but he ends up being attacked and is knocked unconscious by this masked man. Kristen then decides to, she's going to this garage now to look for James. At one point, she falls and kind of hurts her leg. She gets to this radio. She tries to use it, but Pinup Girl ends up coming in and finding her, destroying the radio. Kristen's able to escape. She gets outside. She gets back into the house, and then the lights seem to go out. We get a great shot here where she's hiding in the pantry. And we see the masked man moving around, and a couple of times think maybe he's going to come towards her. Then there's a scene where he just kind of sits down. He's just kind of sitting there for a moment, and she's watching him. But the doll-faced girl does end up showing back up and finding her. We see this masked man throw James back inside the house. Kristen tries to run away, but they're able to subdue her as well. The couple then awakens. It's morning outside. They're tied to these chairs, and we get the famous line, great line, and really a very creepy line, where Kristen asks them why, and Dollface replies, "Because you were home." Just such a great line that I won't overdo it talking about it. I think a lot of people have talked about this line as being such a great line in this film and truly very scary. The strangers then end up taking, these three people end up taking their masks off and take turns stabbing this couple. And then they leave. As they leave in their truck, they come across these boys that are handing out Mormon tracts. Dollface ends up taking one. We hear Pinup Girl say that it'll be easier next time. And then the boys end up coming across the house. You come inside. Here's where we get how we opened the film up of the 911 call. They find the bodies of Kristen and James and Mike, and then we get one last little jump scare where, as one of the boys is standing there near Kristen and knelt down beside her, she reaches up and grabs his hand and screams, and that is the end of The Strangers. I don't feel like we needed that last jump scare. I'll leave it there. I think the ending, while I really like the ending of this film and where the because you were home. I love that line and that being the backstory. I think it's great. Like I've said before, I think sometimes movies try to explain too much or give too much of a backstory. This film is not guilty of that here. And I think that's fantastic. It just makes it creepier. And then for them to leave and see these two kids, outside that are handing out these tracts and have a brief interaction with them and then leave. And then the kids come into the house and find this aftermath. I think that's good enough. I don't think we needed that last jump scare. I think the ending would have been better and creepier without it. But at the same time, I don't think it takes too much away from the film. That's just my thought and a little bit of a nitpick there. But as you can tell, I'm a fan of this movie. I really like The Strangers. I think this is a phenomenal film. Again, paced so well. The performances are really good. The story is fantastic. I think this film is generally creepy and generally scary. I just think there's a lot of good stuff in this movie. I think it still holds up so well almost 20 years later now. I think it's a phenomenal movie. So yeah, I really do like this one and highly recommend it because, like I've said a couple of times now, you watch as much horror as I do, and as I'm sure you do, you can get desensitized to some of these things, and it take a lot to scare you. But I think this movie does a solid job of that. I think this movie is a very scary movie. I think that this concept is terrifying, and I think it's just done perfectly in the way they put it all out there. As far as rating this movie on a scale of 1 to 10, gosh, I would give The Strangers a 9. It's not perfect, but it's really, really good. You probably thought, by the way, I've been talking about it, I was going to give it a 10. There's a few things here and there that it could have been better, right? But overall, I think this is a really, really good movie. One of my favorites. Absolutely love it. So The Strangers, for me, is a 9 out of 10. Now I want to know what you think. Leave me some comments. Are you a fan of this movie? Or are you somebody that thinks this movie is overhyped? I know there are people out there that think this movie is overrated. Are you one of those? Everybody's entitled to their own opinions. So let me know what you think about The Strangers from 2008. I'm not talking about this new sequel or this new trilogy that came out recently. We're talking about this one from 2008. So I want to know your thoughts and your opinion on this one. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do so. Got some great stuff coming up next week. My friend Brendan from Our Life in Horror will be back on with me on Monday, our episode on Candyman from 2021 as we get ready to wrap that franchise up. Next Tuesday, I will be live again. Sarah and Kelly from the Final Girls podcast will be on with me. We will be talking about the Jeepers Creepers franchise. We've gone through each one of those movies and are going to come back and wrap it up, rank those films. Get Kelly's opinion on a couple of the episodes that she wasn't able to be on. We're just gonna, have a live talking about the Creeper, and it's going to be a lot of fun. That's next Tuesday night. I also have next week Ken from Sledgehammer Horror is going to be back on. He and I are going to be talking about Child's Play 3, and I think I also have an episode coming out late next week on Ouija. So yeah, a lot of fun stuff coming. Subscribe so you don't miss anything. Follow me on social media. I'm on pretty much everything out there: Blue Sky, Instagram, Threads, X, TikTok, Letterboxd. I've got all of it. Just search Sean's Horror Corner and you will be able to find me that way. Again, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe, like, comment, do all the things, and I will see you soon.